Oh boy. Waves Audio went cold turkey and without warning. Subscription only. And the world exploded. I got so many messages, so many comments from you guys to talk about this one. So let's talk about it. And most important, let's see if we can find alternatives to Waves plugins for those people who didn't like the move. Let's get to it. All right, before we start, guys, subscribe if you haven't already, and if you like the content, please consider using the super thanks. And if you really want to learn how to mix and master professionally, click the join button down here, become a MaxxBass TV member, access the already big and always growing library of full mixing courses, start to finish, mastering courses on many different genres, and a lot more. And in this video, we're gonna see the alternatives to Wave plugins, at least the one that I use, the most common, the most popular, and the links are gonna be all in the info box down below. But of course, I also want to know what are your alternatives, so write them in the comments down below. And now that I talked for way too long, let's see the Waves alternative plugins. All right, I'll go in alphabetical order. I'll try to be quick. So this is gonna be a list. All the links are gonna be in the info box down below because it's a long list. I realized I have several and I use several Waves plugins, which, by the way, I wanna make this clear. I am not abandoning the Waves plugins. I am still gonna use it. I'll pay the $25, I don't care, but this is for you guys who wants to switch, okay? So I myself, I don't care. I'll pay the subscription. Do I like it? No. There's many things in life that I don't like. It doesn't matter. It's my job. But anyway, if you have a Wave plugin that you use that I'm not listing, that you want to know an alternative, write it in the comment down below. We'll find an alternative or not. We'll see what we can do. Anyway, let's start with the Abbey Road Chamber. I don't use this one that much, to be honest. But I have it, I used it in the past, it's a cool plugin. My alternative for this would be the Softtube Atlantis Dual Chambers. Next one on the list is the Abbey Road Plates. I actually only like one of these latter, I don't remember which one, I think it's the B. So I don't use this one that much, but you know, I have it, it's a cool plugin. My alternatives for this would be the Valhalla Plate, which you have to have regardless, and the UVI plate. This plate here might be one of the best plate plugins. You have like all the options you can possibly want. The next one in my list is the RS124. And here's the first one that I find it really hard to replace. To be honest, I wouldn't know. There is the Royal compressor from United Plugins, which I don't have it installed right now. I'll put it in the screen here, which is a great compressor. Yeah, it's not the same as this one. It doesn't really behave the same. You can argue that you could kind of try with the mighty Klangelm MJUC. It's got a lot of options and is based on several Vari-Mu compressors. I think this would probably be the best choice. Next one I have is the Abbey Road Vinyl, and this is again another hard one to really emulate, although I don't use this almost at all. I probably used it 3 times, and I think for what it does, I'm fine with the Isotope Vinyl, which is also free. And if you miss a little bit of saturation or wobble, there are many other, like you can get it from tape plugins and such, but that one is not really a must-have. Next is the Affix Vintage Oral Exciter. Again, not a plugin that I use that much, but the alternative here would be Type E by AudioThing. This is an amazing plugin, by the way, which I highly advise you to get. And they also have in the same bundle the Type B classic harmonic exciters. Next is the API bundle with the 2500 and 550 BA and the 560 equalizer. I'm bummed about this, and again, one of the reasons because I'm not abandoning it is because I use these all the time. I really like them. Whether or not they're close to the hardware, I don't care. I have the hardware if I need it. I really like them, and but good news, because for the first 3, so the 550 BA and the 2500, there is definitely an alternative, and it's amazing. It's Softtube American Class A. Not many people know that this channel is available outside of Console 1, but this is one of the best channel strip that they have. And in here you have the compressor, so the 2500, You have the drive, so the saturation and the character, just like you have on the C1, but it's a standalone plugin. You have the extended 550, so you would basically have that EQ is basically my 5500. So you have like half a dB, and you know you're not tied to the 2 dB steps in gain. You also have filters. You have a shape section. This is great, and it sounds great. Unfortunately, for the 560 EQ, which I love, the top end of this thing is very underrated. I really like it. The only alternative that I can think of would be the SPL free range, all the full range, which is a graphic EQ like this one, and it sounds pretty good. My memory, because I don't have it installed. And let me get this out of the way, because there are gonna be other channel strip here in the list, and for me, they were all replaced a long ago. So before this, I still have them, I still use the waves, but my default and go-to have all been replaced by Console 1 by Softube. And this is not because of what happened. You've seen me doing the switch since I got the C1. My mixes all have changed. First in the slot is the SSL 4000 from Softube with the Console 1. For me, it's still the best sounding, and it's got an extra feature with the drive for every channel. I love it. So the Waves SSL channel strip, for me, is the Softube C1, for which we have a 4KE and 9KE. Let me show that to you, see? So we have American Class A, British Class for all the Neve style EQ and compressor and channel strip for the color. Then we have the Chandler Empirical Lab, then you can see SSL 4KE and SSL XL 9K series. So we have both consoles of SSL, and this is licensed and approved by SSL. Brower Motion, again, this is a quite unique plugin, and there's no direct replacement for me. I'll give you another one, I'll give you two actually, but in all honesty, there's no other plugin that actually does what the Brower Motion does. It's one of my most loved Waves plugin. I use it freaking every mix. And I can give you one alternative, which is the Tube Modulator by Audiority, which is also an absolutely freaking insanely good plugin. I adore it. It's not exactly the same as the Brower Motion, but back against the wall and you don't want to use any plugin from them, this will do the trick, along with Melda Auto Pan, which is free, by the way, and Panman from Sound Toys, which is another great panner. Again, not exactly the same, but they will get you there. I have C1 Compressor Gate, which is a great clean plugin. I don't remember last time I used it. I had it from, you know, way back then. Any decent stock plugin will pretty much do the same. The one thing about the C1 that I really like is that you could switch, you know, the sidechain and the EQ mode in sidechain split or wideband, and just use it, for example, as a band selective compressor, almost like the S1 MK3. It's a real workhorse, but at the end of the day, it's just a clean, very controllable plugin. There's many out there. Most DAW have something like this stock. C4 and C6. Again, this one is kind of a classic. We have many options for this. The first one that would be my choice is the Ultimate Multiband of MaxxDSP, which gives you the possibilities, as you know, of changing every single module with different types of compressor and build your own multiband. That would be my choice. If you want to go streamlined, there's FabFilter Pro NB, and then still by MaxxDSP, another one which is, I think, a must-have, again, is the MC404. I have a video on this. If you want to go mastering grade, we have the MD4 System 6000. Again, I have a video on this one. And of course, Ozone Dynamics, which I love, by the way. Now I have the CLA Signature Series, bass, effect, drums. I'm not opening all of them, guitars, vocals, all these. Now I never use these, so I absolutely don't care. But if you do use them, I mean, it ain't that hard to reverse engineer them. I mean, there's literally the things that they do at the bottom, and none of them have like something in particular. I mean, they are just simply fast access to presets. For example, if we take this, right? Where am I? We have the bass slider that is sub, lower, or upper. This is just a frequency, all right? So it's just an upper frequency would be probably like 140 or 120, lower will be around 90, and sub will probably be 30 or something. So you can reverse engineer these if you feel like you need them. Treble, same thing, these are 3 frequencies. And same for compress. Push is probably like an 1176 or whatever else. And I think they released, when they were building these, there's the sketches of what they are if you just want to be anal about it. But I don't feel like they have anything in particular that you would be, oh my god, how am I gonna do without them? If you have some of the processes that you don't know or you're not sure what they do, you can ask me in the comments down below. For example, for vocals, like the pitch, stereo wide, and a spreader. These are 3 different kinds of pitch, like modulation, like the Eventide 910. It's an alternative to that pitch, and slightly delayed left and right. For all of these processes, there's a dedicated plugin for each slider, or maybe it's 2 of them, but still totally doable. And then the one thing that I heard a lot of people were saying, oh, I'm gonna miss that, is the CLA Epic. I don't use this, and yet I have even my friend and colleague who like them, simply because I've always done this with my delays and effects. If you've been following me for a long time, you know. So I already have my own, you know, 4 different reverbs and 4 different delays going one into each other. So to me, this one wasn't really, you know, that appealing. They gave it to me to check out when it came out. It's well documented which reverbs and delays were used to emulate this. For example, I remember that one of these, I think the Crowd actually, is the Ursa Major, is this one, and it's available. This is one of the latest Audiority plugins, so you can see which units, and for the others there are impulse responses. I kind of try to recreate that, and it is totally possible. Now, still CLA, going in alphabetical order, I have and use the CLA 2A, 3A, and 76. Now, I really like the CLA 76. I gotta say it. I'm not a fan of the 2A. I don't think I've ever used it. But the CLA 76 is like, I use it all the time. I don't know why, even though, keep in mind, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 hardware 1176s, and I have a Blue Stripe, Revision D, Revision G, so the black face would be, so I have this one, I have the black one, I have the Revision G, which is transparent, I have the Revision D with the tube in it, I have the 500 series Mimas, and I have another one coming in, which I'll show you. I can't talk about it right now. So 4 1176, and I still like the CLA 76, both blue and black face. I like the 3A, but I do have a real 3A hardware, and I don't use the 3A a lot. It might end up on a vocal. Once the 3A is the right ticket, it's the right ticket, no doubt about it. And I'm not talking about this particular plugin, I'm talking about the 3A in general, at least for me. When I mix Ryan Shuck's vocals, the 3A is for him. We track with a 76 on the way in a little bit, and then the 3A is his mixing, like my mixing compressor for his voice. But we do have alternatives for these. If you want to get one that covers all of them, go with the 6050 Ultimate Channel Strip by Mac DSP. You have Opto 3, 3A, 2A, you have Neve style, you have Easy style, you have many, even Fairchild-like. And so you have the EQs, same way, with many different choices. With one plugin, you get a bunch of them. Then, if you want to go individual, Softube just happened that they released the Opto compressor, all new, the Fed compressor. So we have 2A covered, we have a 76 covered, and they actually have the VCA compressor covered, which would cover this, the Waves DB160. And as an alternative to the 2A, there's also the T-Rex, where I happen to have, I think I'd never used it. I used it a couple of times, but I do have it, and a lot of people likes it. So these would be my alternatives for the CLA stuff. Waves Doubler, another old schooler and kind of a staple in many studios, at least back in the year. This is really just 2 delay lines with a little bit of pitch and a little bit of modulation. There's plenty of alternatives. most of them better. Actually, these definitely better. So Eventide H910, definitely one of my favorite and most used. So is the 949 dual harmonizer. Then we have the micro pitch from Eventide again, freaking amazing, by the way. And the little micro shift from Sound Toys, and also the Avox Duo. So many alternatives for that. Enigma, another one of the old school with a kind of horrible GUI, which, by the way, the GUI, they say all the plugins will have updated GUI. This is again one kind of unique plugin in my opinion, and you kind of can replace it with things like Instant Flanger, for example, or Instant Phaser by Eventide again, Flanger BL20 by Arturia, or Taurus by UVI. These are just few, but there are out there like several modulation plugins that can get kind of the same result. The Flanger / Phasers are the one that you want to experiment. I don't see the Enigma being one of those precise plugins that you have to replicate exactly what it does, because this is a modulation, and more often than not you just tweak it by ear. So those would be my alternatives. F6 dynamic EQ, this couldn't be easier. There's many, I actually have many. The first would be, of course, Vice EQ1. If you don't have the CPU power to use multiple instances of this, there's of course Nova GE, which is one of my most used plugins, period. Amazing. And get the GE, get the General Edition, support the guys, and also you get a ton of more features. And of course we go high quality again with the AE Series 600 and 400 by MaxxDSP. These are amazing, super detailed and controllable dynamic equalizers. GTR, I have it. I use it sporadically. I like it. I also like the pedal board that they have, but there's so many guitar amps. Simulator and pedal simulator. Amplitude, I absolutely love it. There's guitar rig, and of course there's everything that Neural DSP makes. I have Abazi, Gojira, Nolly, 14 Omega Parallax Soldano, and one of my favorites lately, which I did all Bella's guitar sounds for her new EP with the Imperial MK2, amazing clean and crunchy sounds. So I have H-Comp. I don't use it. I haven't been using it for a long time. I think it's a cool compressor, but nothing more. The only thing that I can think of is this punch control, which you can find pretty much in the Empirical Lab Arouser, which is, remember, is not a one-to-one to the distressor. Is of course is distressor based, but it has much more things. I think if you want a workhorse compressor, this would be definitely one of the replacements. You have, you know, internal sidechain detector, and you have this where is it, the attack modification, which will give you that initial snap that H-Comp gives you, which you can then control with the saturation. So I think this would be a good choice. But there's also the Klangelm compressor, the DC something something, which is a great all-around compressor. There's many. I mean, the H-Comp is a workhorse, it's not really a specialty compressor. So is the H-Delay. You know, I literally have a video on my favorite delays, and I use a lot of different delays. But my favorite and go-tos would be Repeater, would be Relayer by UVI, Echo Boy Steel, and MaxxDSP EC300. So definitely these are must-have. In phase, I don't use it often because I'm fortunate enough not to get that many messed up recordings, but I think it's a unique plugin. And the only alternative that I can think of is Radix, I think it's called, and that would be it. The only one I know. I would need to have this. IR1, I use this plugin because I'm so very used to it. And just, you know, I did my own presets for the Bricasti M7. I have a bunch of folders that I did for this with some impulses from my favorite hardware units like the SPX 990, PCM70s, and so on. So I use it, it's cool. I have an EQ on board. I like it. It's not irreplaceable. My replacements would be a MaxxDSP Revolver Convolution Reverb, which is also great, and also the space if you are on Pro Tools. JZ37, I have it, I use it. I don't really use it as a tape emulator. I like to use this one as a tape delay. For that, you saw, for example, the EC300 that I showed you, the Mac DSP will do the trick. As a tape sound, I have many. One of my favorites is a Real Buzz from Tone Booster. Probably my most used is the soft tube tape, and then Type from Baby Audio. It's great, a lot of options, a lot of color. And then there's Bad Tape if you want to go over the top, Denise Audio. And then also Real Tape Delay and Real Tape Saturation, Avid, which are not that amazing, but they kind of have their own sound, so, you know, they're an option. Kramer Tape and Transformers Collection. I like the Pi compressor. I don't use it that much. I used to use it more, but when I use it, that's the only one that I think is available, and I like it. I like the tone. I wouldn't know an alternative to that. I don't even think there's any other Pi plugin emulation, but that style of compression, yes, there's many. It's a pretty unique compressor, so it's not gonna be exactly that. But just to give you two options, the Omnipressor, you can get kind of the same aggression and everything. I think there's another one, the plugin version of the Vocal Stressor from DB. I don't remember the company. I'll put the picture here, or the Dynamite by Softube, but it ain't gonna be exactly the same. I like the Pi very much. I actually am lucky enough. Ikari, there's two. There's an original Pi and a reissue hardware, and they are amazing. Same for the HLS channel. I used to use this quite a lot. It kind of fell on me, and I'm not using it anymore, but I think UAD Helios would be the closest thing. I don't know any other thing. For the Kramer tape, this again is kind of a familiar sound for me, but to be realistic, any of the other tape that I showed you will do. And actually it's funny because now I have the MPX from Warm Audio, the hardware, which emulates the 250 and the 350 and the 351, which I actually have a hardware besides the actual tape. But yeah, these would be the alternatives. L1, L2, and then I also have the L3, the multiband, which I never use, ever. But the L1 and L2, I do use them on single tracks, and I showed that in many of my mixes. I mean, these are just limiters, so you can literally pick anything. My choice would probably be right now a low impact limiter, like Pure Limit by Sonible. That will replace these two for the single track limiting that I do with these two. Linear phase EQ, this is easy, any linear phase, because it's linear phase, so they don't really have a sound. I would go probably, even just FabFilter Pro Q3 will do the job. You have a linear phase here at the bottom, and you also have the latency, the maximum latency if you want. This will 100% do the trick, so will the Kirchhoff EQ. Linear phase multiband. This is another one that, even though it's a linear phase, it kind of has a sound. I featured this plugin in several videos, and for me to lose this one would be kind of, I mean, I don't use it that much, to be honest, not anymore. Like I said, I used it before on when I didn't have my hardware. For some reason, of all things, a linear phase multiband kind of helped me to glue my mix together when I didn't have, I was either traveling or my studio wasn't ready, whatever the case was. Of course, it was not the only one I had on the 2-bus, but it was kind of a good gel, right? But again, it's familiarity for me, because with this one, I literally did like 1 dB of compression. So any multiband linear phase will do. Pro MB has a linear phase and oversampling mode here. So we have linear, dynamic, and maximum phase. So this will do, although it's not as precise as the Lin MB. For some reason, it doesn't have the same factor, just simply because the ergonomics are different. And if you remember, I have my starting presets, and I just pull down the master and then back off what I need to, master threshold, and then just do a little bit of a compression on it. But any multiband, you know, which is linear phase, will do. MaxxBass and RBass, this kind of breaks my heart because I just love this plugin. It's old as dust, And I kind of don't have an alternative to it because what it does is kind of unique and it's different from, for example, the other bass management and enhancers plugins, for example, Submarine, Steel from Waves, or Low Air. These two are bass synthesizers and they add an extra octave at the bottom. MaxxBass creates higher harmonics from the existing bass, which is totally different. To be completely honest, this is the first time that I think about it. I don't have an alternative for MaxxBass and R-Bass, which are the same thing. You could try to replicate something with Audiority Harmonic Maximizer, which is not gonna be the same, and Ozone Exciter. Same for Submarine Low Air. The only one that I can think of, actually the one that I replace them with, is the Pro Sub Harmonic, which is Pro Tools and Air, which I actually like better than the other one. It wins 9 times out of 10 on Submarine and Low Air. I prefer it. If you're not on Pro Tools, you need to find something like that. I think there was a plugin that was VST only that I used to use. It was black and it looked like a little bit like an old DBX unit. I'll find the name. Max Volume and MV2. Again, I don't know any alternatives to these, even though they are simple. They are levelers, so it's just basically automatic gain rides. It just happened. They just happen to work, like the way the release and the way they react to the material. I love them very much. I don't know with what to replace them, honestly. So this is an open thread. Write it in the comments down below. I'm pretty sure there is an alternative for these. Mondo Mod. I love this this one. I used to use it more, but I want to say there's something better, and if you want that kind of effect. So Mondo Mod, it kind of pans things kind of behind you and, you know, around you, 360, but it's a pretty flat panning. It just works with volumes. While if you want something that is the real deal, then you get this, which I discovered. I actually rediscovered this version 7 of Panorama Waves Art, and I actually have a short video on how I mix guitar on an EDM track in which I use this one. It's pretty impressive. Like, not only the positioning is legit, and you can actually see, you know, different views and place this one on top of your head, wherever you want. It's like really, really cool. You can also choose the material for your walls. It's really cool. Definitely a good alternative to any panning plugins the Waves has. More for there. This is basically a vocoder. I love this plugin and I would honestly miss it if I had to replace it, but there's many vocal synths today. That's what I use it for. I use it for vocals. Vocal synth being one, and probably the main one that I would use. There's also Arturia Vocoder V, which is absolutely amazing. And there's Antares Vocodis, which is, again, kind of an industry standard at this point. Really, really cool plugin. These would be all great alternatives. NLS, bus, and channels. For me, this is the easiest because I replaced all these types of console-like channels with console one. I can select any console that I want. So American Class A, which give me the American Classic API sound. I have British Class A, and of course everything changes when you change console. You can see the color here changes, all of it. Compressors, shape, and you have your own different color drive for each console. Then there's the Chandler, and everything changes to yellow. And again, this drive function here and the character changes for every console. And you can maintain, let's say I want a drive from Chandler, but I still want the EQ from API, for example. I can pick one, and that's now my API EQ here with the Chandler distortion. Or let's say I want to keep my 4000 or 9000 EQ, and there I have it. You can see it changes color, it goes back to blue, and I can still keep my Chandler drive or my Neve drive or API drive or SSL drive and change all the other modules. So I want to change the compressor. You can see I have everything. I have a British compressor, so 609 or 609 limiter. I can have a Zener. I can have the drummer multiband. I can have a distressor as a compressor here if I want. So you see, you get my point. You can have like the TLA, the CL1B, VCA, Valley, anything. And same for the shape. I can have an API shape, which gives me punch, so transient designer, sustain, gate release, or I can have other things, dirty tape for color. I can have harmonics, you know, the standalone harmonics that Softube have, the overstayer mass at the top. So it gets super crazy. That's why I don't bother with any other channel strip. Next waves would be the PS22, which is this kind of stereoizer, and I have alternatives for these. Nugen Audio stereoizer is arguably quite better than that. And also the other one, a stereo placer, which is more like an EQ, where you can place bands, you know, left and right, like parts of the frequency spectrum left and right. But the stereoizer is a great stereoizer plugin. And of course, the king of stereo manipulation, Dr. MS. We've seen that in one of the most popular videos on the channel. So this would be the alternative. All right, almost at the end of this long video. The Puig Child and the Puig collection. I don't have all of them. I don't have the Signature series. I don't like those. But I have the 670, the Pultec. So the alternative to the Puig Child 670 is actually I have a real one. So I don't need a plugin for it. I know it's kind of silly, but it's the truth. If I was to get another 670, although I gotta tell you guys, I've never heard a plugin 670 that was even close to this, to the real deal, I would probably go with the T-Rex. Actually is the one I have. Does it sound like a hardware 670? No, not really, but it's kind of it's got the idea of it, and it's a cool compressor. For the Pultec instead, I would go with Acoustica Audio. There's several EQ plugins that they have that I prefer, whether or not they are direct emulations of the Pultec, but the Pultec style, I mean, the push and pull and that kind of vibe, Acoustica Audio has some of the best. Otherwise, I really like this one, TubeTech from Softube again. And this is the MK2, so it's different from the MK1, which was cool, but I wasn't a big fan of that. But this one is really, really cool. And so this is your replacement. You have everything in one plugin, the EQP1 and the mid EQ as well. Then we have our comp, which is, again, one of those staples and probably in so many sessions. And it might not look like much, but this packs some kind of features that is cool to have in a no-brainer kind of plugin like this. Like for example, switching from opto to electro, which is LA2A 76, the warm and smooth and the auto release. There are kind of functions that we have a Neal for right now because it has been used on so many records. But this is basically just pick one of your one workhorse compressor. Like I said, depending on your style, if you want one, because I personally don't use our comp that much. I gravitate towards Arouser a lot for like general purpose compressor, the SSL compressor on the 4K on the C1, MJUC if I want color without tweaking too much, or FabFilter Pro C for like general purpose clean. Real ADT, I have it. I used to use it before, and for this one the alternatives would be pretty much the same that were for the doubler. So the 910 Eventide, the 949 Eventide, the microshift and the little microshift, all those if you want to add a little bit of flanger. But and this one has the dry, which I never use, but if you want to kind of really duplicate that, then you add a little bit of saturation to it. RS56, this is again a very broadband equalizer. I'm not sure it does any color emulation. This one is just the curves that are emulated of that particular compressor. Sorry, EQ. I don't know any other equalizer that replicates or emulates this particular EQ. I don't use this EQ that much, although it sounds good. My replacement would probably be a curve bender, even though it doesn't really emulate the same unit. Still, I look at the RS56 like a bus EQ or a general master EQ, I want to say. Now the Chandler curve bender has a is very mid forward, like I call it, the king of mids. Not exactly the character, but that's the EQ that I could think of. I would probably go with something like the Acustica Pensato EQ. Shout out to Dave, it was his birthday not long ago. So I mean, you can find replacements. It's not an EQ that has like a specific color that you can't replicate. It's mostly just the curve, so the Kirchhoff EQ could probably do the trick. S1 Imager, I really like this one, especially because it's got the asymmetry control, but a free one that you can use is the A1 stereo control, which has a lot of extra functions, as you can see, an expert mode panel, and you can still tilt the stereo image and do the automations that you see me doing with the S1. Sapphira, I love this plugin. It's really cool. I used to use it a lot. This is a saturator, so how much time do you have? You could watch my video on saturators to see my favorite, but basically Ozone Exciter multiband is one of my favorite, which doesn't necessarily have to be used in multiband. You can use it like this, one band if you want. Harmonic Maximizer by Audioarity, which is really cool. Harmonics by Softtube is another one. And of course, Acustica Jam. These are all great alternative to Sapphira. Shep73, I didn't even remember I had this plugin. I never use it. I'm not particularly a fan of the saturation that it has or the EQ. But if you want a 73 style thingy, then I would definitely go with the Etruria. I actually very much like this one. This would be my choice. Sibilance, I use it, I have it. I like it because it's quite transparent, but it can be not as effective. So I don't use this that much. My favorite de-esser, it would definitely be Vice de-esser, of course, also for mastering, but also Pro DS by FabFilter. These are definitely two of my favorite, and MaxxBass DE 5x5. These are all great alternative. We have the SSL EG channel, the SSL EG EQ. I've already said Softtube is my choice if I want SSL 4000 style, EQ compressor, all that. But the SSL comp, the G comp, the bus compressor, now we just released it yesterday, the bus processor from Softtube, which is bonkers. This plugin, it's crazy. And I just released a video a few days ago. I don't know when this video is gonna be out, but this compressor is insane. And it's of course based on the classic SSL glue compressor with extra features. And of course you also can't go wrong with the SSL, their own bus compressor too. I have it. I haven't played with it a lot, but also because I have like two different hardware SSL compressors, but those are definitely both better choices, I want to say, than the old waves. And these are the last few. I have Super Tap. I don't use it. I haven't used it in a long time. If you want a multi-tap, go definitely with Relayer by UVI. You have a ton of options for it that no other delays have. Auto panning right off the bat. This thing is freaking awesome. And you also have my own presets here. MaxxBass TV presets when you buy the plugin. It's great. If you want a multi-tap, that's it. Then there's Trans X. There's the wideband and the multiband. This is a transient designer. The SPL transient designer will do, although I'm a big fan of this thing. And even though I have, like, for example, Transgressor 2 by BossLab, which is great, I can't really think of a multi-band transient designer like this that I like this much. But maybe you guys have an alternative to this. I'm really fond of this because I remember I used this on McSolaar vocals in the album that I mixed for him. Of all things, right? Because there were a couple of recordings that were like really spiky. I think I would probably, right now, if I miss this, I would use Spiff by Oak Sound for like the attenuation part of it, but still, it's kind of hard to replace it for how silly does it sound. Then at the end of the alphabet, there would be the V comp. This is basically a 2254 Neve compressor, which I don't really use the plugin because I have a real one hardware. And the 2254, I think Lindell makes a plugin, so that would be your direct replacement, but also the 2254 is kind of the same as a 609, so you would have to go with your Truria 609, which is great. VEQ, same thing for me. All these strip-like channels are all console one. So yes, there's a British version of it, which has compressor, limiter, and EQs. That would be my choice. Vitamin, this is basically a multi-band exciter, which for me, there are several, but for me, it would be back to Ozone multi-band exciter and harmonic maximizer by Audiority again, and maybe a couple of other ones which I can't really reveal. Then we have the noise attenuation post-production. I used to use this one, V43, until I got Ozone RX. So all the cleaning tasks for me for tracks, the clipping, the clicking, the crackle, noise removal, dialogue isolation, all that stuff for me is Ozone RX, hands down. Waves Tune, again, I don't use this one, but of course, for tuning vocals in a transparent way, for me, Melodyne is the way to go. If for anything else, kind of Anthrax kind of effects, of course, I have all the Anthrax stuff, so that would be Autotune Artist, Autotune Pro, which I don't see. There you go. These are the industry standard. Like the Waves version was their version of this. So, and then the last one would be the VLM, the multimeter for LUFS, RMS, and all those things, which I kind of have the hardware now with the TC Electronics, so I don't really use that anymore, but there's plenty of free meters. I don't have them installed, but Yulin meter would be one, M Analyzer by Melda Audio, and Flux Stereo Tool. But again, if you want a dedicated professional metering system with everything, and actually this one's got surround 2 channels, get the TC Electronic, it also looks cool. And this would be it. A long video to try to replace this, and of course guys, I want to hear your replacements in the comments down below. All the links to the plugins, I hope I'll be able to remember them all and gather them all and put them in the info box down below. Let me know what you think about Waves move to subscription only, even though I already know what you guys think. Thank you for watching. Use the super thanks and support the channel, because this video was hard to make. And also, if you are a NAMM April 13, I'm speaking at the Innovation Lounge about Atmos mixing and a lot of other cool things with Dweezil Zappa. Come by if you're around. Subscribe if you haven't already. Stay safe. See you next time.
Hands on my neck, hands grip my throat. Lift me up, man, take control. Heart is so